Love some old school spline control, so we're going to have a little bit of a revisit. With a little help from a graph editor expression, we're going to tie together non-deforming and deforming geometry. I'm using LightWave 2025.0.3, and there's a link to the scene files in the description. Boring stuff first, let's start with the basics. I have three nulls here, A, B and C. Select A and bring up the graph editor, so it's Command F2 on the Mac. For this example, we're going to reference the y-axis of null A here. We'll set up the expression first, so select the position Y channel, and we need to be on this expressions tab here. Click on the new button. Let's just give it a name, let's just call it value. So as you can see in the value field here, it started with value, and this is important, we need to keep that. And after the value, we'll hit the plus, go over to this position Y and right mouse click on this, and we want append to expression. So we'll show what that does. Next, let's select object B, select the channel we want to apply the expression to, and hit this apply button. This little dot applied to the channel just means an expression is attached. Under display, I'm going to check a couple of options. Firstly, I don't want track item selections on. We'll see why in a second. And then show modifiers, I want to make sure is on. So now when I select null A, as you can see with track item selections off, B is still present in the graph editor. If we now move A around on the y-axis, B will follow. We can see it looking at this dotted line, the result of those two values added together. Select B and move that around. Everything behaves as you'd expect. The nice thing about this expression is it's totally reusable. We'll select null C, go to the Y position, and as before, just hit apply. In this context, not very useful. You might as well parent everything together, but let's look at an example where this is useful. Quick look at the model. In our first layer, we have a spline. Here's our train. Now I want to be bending this around corners, hence lots of segments down the Z axis here. Here's my text. It's all on one layer, and unlike the train, I don't want to be distorting this. These also have weight maps applied to them because we'll be adding bones later. There's a single support here, which I'll be instancing. It looks like it's floating, but it's actually modelled to line up with the train. Here's the model loaded into layout. There's a lot of resources out there for setting up spline control in layout, so I've made a head start here and I'm going to rifle through the rest of it. Starting with the spline, I've taken the modeler curve and turned it into joints. It's not set up yet, which is why you can't see it. Annoyingly, curve to spline should be in the setup tab down here somewhere, but it doesn't appear to be available in 2025. It's probably a Mac legacy Python thing, which is a bit annoying. If you have LightWave 2024, it is available here in the flat menu. If you don't have LightWave 2024, take a look at Rigit's rigging toolbox. Under tools, there's a couple of nice options here to create splines. Anyway, moving on. So let's select the train and press 2 on the keyboard. Add a bone. Rotate it 180 degrees. Shift R for rest length. Make it as long as the train. Control spacebar to get the flat menu up, and we'll go split bone. There's a couple to choose from here. This one at the top, this is the interactive one. You see that by the little line across this bone here. So we'll click on that. We'll just keep on doing that. That will be plenty. Hit the spacebar to deselect and press R to rest the bones in place. Y for rotate. Yep, that's working. The next step is to attach these bones to our spline. So let's press M for motion options. Under spline control, we will select our spline, which is this one near the top. And what we should see is those bones jump to the beginning of the spline. Now with these bones still selected, we'll do a bit of housekeeping. Deselect that first bone. We'll lock the other bones and we'll also hide them. We'll collapse this because we don't need to see those again. This bone, let's just call it root and make it red. With that root bone selected, grabbing the Z handle, the blue one, we can now see that everything nicely follows that spline. We're going to be using Spline Control on a number of items. So for this, I'm going to use Rebel Hill's technique of referencing a single object. I've already created a null for this, master move along spline. Let's select the root bone of that train that we've just been tinkering with. Press M for motion options. Under the modifier, we will go for the old follower. Let's double click on this. Now, the item to follow, we want that master move along spline item. We only want the Z position, so we'll select none for all of these other drop downs. We'll also untick after IK as this affects the evaluation order. Click continue, select the master move along spline null and move it along the Z. All animations along the spline will now be controlled by this null. We're going to start by adding a quick animation to this master move along spline null. So I'm going to take it all the way down here to start. And for this demo, I'm not going to be too precious about it. It's just off screen, but I've selected channel edit mode here, so I'm just using the Z axis. So at this point, I want it to slow down. So let's put a key in there by double clicking. And at this point, I want it to speed up. So let's put another double click in there. And let's just move that along. So that slows down along that period of time. Let's just bring up the graph editor, see what that looks like. Press 1 on the keyboard and Shift G will refresh that list with just the keys that have movement on them. A fast in, a slow down, and then a speed off. That's fine. I'm going to turn off the value object for the moment. We're going to concentrate on these little supports and we're going to add a few to the top of these cars. So I'm going to hide that because we're going to use instances. So I'm going to select that though, and then go to the items tab. Under the clone, I want clone instance. And there it is, a null with an instance, but we want to see that. So let's press P for properties, go to the instance generator. It's all set up for us. All I'm going to do is turn the visibility to textured, shade, solid. Close that. Oops, not sure how that got in there. Let's delete that keyframe. Let's give our instance a color. So the instance is selected, press M for motion options. And as with the root bone for our train, we want spline control to be that spline. There we go. If we move it along the Z, you see it's working, but it's working independently of everything else. And obviously we want it to automatically follow the cars. Now what we could do is we could go back to this root, press M for motion options. We could copy it from the root and then paste it onto this instance object. And what we could do is we could go up here and we could just give it an offset like this. The trouble is, this is really old tech. It's a modal window, so you put your value in here, but you won't see it update until you hit the continue button. And then it might be wrong, and then you've got to go in and out, and you've got to do this. You'd have to go through this for each of the instances I want to use, and basically it's just a pain, so let's just get rid of it. What I have noticed is this is flipped, so let's sort that out quickly. Open up the instance generator and just change it to world coordinates. Basically what that means, if I now select the source object and move that about, it'll be reflected in that instance, but I don't want to do that, so let's reset it. At last, the expression. Let's bring up the graph editor. And we don't need to see anything just yet. We'll select our master move along spline null and we'll go to the Z. This is the channel with the spline control moves on it. As shown earlier, let's press new. Let's call it value. Now we want to keep this value parameter, but we want to add to that this. So right mouse click, append to expression. That's it, we're done. Now all we have to do is select our train support instance. That will update. We'll go to the position Z and we'll just hit apply. If your modifier's on, you will see this dotted line. So let's close this down. Press T for position and we're just going to move that into place. And then we're just going to keep cloning it and moving it. That's now following our spline exactly where we want them. Let's apply the same method to our value text. Sometimes when objects are being displaced, it's easy to lose track of where you're at. So I like to go to the setup tab and turn off deformations. Just for my own headspace really, so I know where everything is supposed to be. I won't be parenting this to anything. 2 on the keyboard to get to top view. Let's turn on wireframe, so there we are. First thing it needs is a bone. And it's not there because it's up here. Move this into position of our first letter, which is the V there. So I want it somewhere in the center. Let's get the flat menu up and we'll type in split bone. But let's use this second one here just to see what the difference is. Rather than being interactive, it'll ask you for a number it needs to be split into. So I'm saying 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's worked nicely. Actually, Shift R, I might take the rest length of each down a little bit, and then I'm going to select each. I'm just going to move it kind of to the center point of each of those letters. Right mouse click on this first bone, and that'll select the whole chain. Then press R to rest, and you can see they're activated. We'll apply each of those weight maps we created in Modeler to each letter. With them all still selected, press M on the keyboard and we're going to go for Spline Control again, and we want that spline. Now everything's disappeared off because if you remember, we still have deformations off. Let's enable those. Press A on the keyboard to center that in our viewport. Select the first bone in that chain. There they are, moving nicely along the spline. And as before, we're just going to bring up the graph editor. Select the position Z just for that bone there. Go over to the expressions tab and then this expressions tab. Click on the value because that's the one we want, and we're just going to hit apply. Shift A centers that bone to screen, and I'm going to just eyeball that. For finer increments, right bracket. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. If we hit play, everything is working really well. We're mixing deformed and undeformed geometry, all referencing animation on this single null. So if the animation on that reference changes, everything just follows. This is the scene I've left for you to download and pick apart. As you can see, I've added a little bit of secondary animation on the value text here. So if we select this, P for properties, under the nodal displacement, there's just a little bit of DP kit rotation going on. Last little thing to show, let's bring the graph editor up for a second. If we go to this expressions tab here, this will be a list of all the expressions you have. Double clicking on it will show you what it's attached to. To remove it from a channel, just select or shift select and just hit the remove button. And if you want to add it back, just hit the apply button. There you go. As mentioned, links to the scene files in the description below.